I'm very competitive and I am athletic. I like sports, but this was different, and there's a lot of drama surrounding it.
He once made all of America burst into laughter with a single line, "Did I do that?" The oversized round glasses, high-waisted pants, and awkward walk of Steve Urkel turned Jaleel White into a 1990s cultural icon, the most beloved child star on American television. Yet few knew that behind every laugh were long nights of tears, and behind the spotlight was a life swallowed by the shadow of his own success. When Urkel ended, Jaleel White thought he would finally be free. But that was exactly when the dark secrets began to surface. A broken love affair, allegations of abuse, an on-set outburst, and a reputation destroyed overnight. So what exactly turned America's most lovable nerd into the center of a storm of scandals? Are you ready to uncover the darkest secrets of Jaleel White? When fame comes too early. He was not merely a product of Hollywood, but the embodiment of a journey both dazzling and bitter, where a 3-year-old child stepped into the adult world far too soon. And from then on, there was no turning back. Jaleel Ahmad White was born in 1976 in Pasadena, California, into a middle-class family with a strong educational background. His father was a dentist, and his mother, Gail White, was the one who held his hand into the spotlight and kept a firm grip on the reins throughout his journey. While other children were still playing in sandboxes, Jaleel was learning to smile for the camera repeating lines over and over in commercial shoots. At the age of 3, he began living the life of a miniature adult, and Hollywood became his first classroom. The 1980s were the golden age of sitcoms and television commercials. With bright eyes and an unusually natural presence, Jaleel quickly became a familiar face in a string of major ad campaigns. At 8, he landed his first television role in The Jeffersons, playing a piano prodigy, a performance that made many directors take note of his name. But the light that had just begun to shine was soon snuffed out. In 1984, Jaleel was chosen to audition for the role of Rudy Huxtable in The Cosby Show. At that time, Rudy was written as a boy, and Jaleel was almost guaranteed the part. His family even prepared to move to New York. But just days before signing the contract, Bill Cosby decided to change Rudy into a girl to better reflect his own family life. The role went to Keshia Knight Pulliam, and Jaleel sat crying in an empty audition room, unable to understand how a single phone call could erase his dream. Yet Hollywood's fate often works in mysterious ways. One door closed, another opened, and that door was Family Matters. In 1989, ABC was looking for a boy to guest star in episode 13 of the first season, Steve Urkel, the nerdy, bespectacled, clumsy neighbor with a squeaky voice. The part was written for just one episode, but no one expected the 12-year-old boy to leave the entire studio speechless. When the episode aired, America went wild. "Did I do?" That became the catchphrase of millions of kids, and Jaleel White, from an unknown child actor, became a cultural phenomenon. Within weeks, producers rewrote the entire script, making Urkel the heart and soul of Family Matters. From 1989 to 1998, Jaleel stayed for 9 seasons, and 215 episodes, transforming what was once a show about the Winslow family into The Urkel Show. At 14, he earned $100,000 per episode, a salary that stunned Hollywood. The press called him the youngest money-making machine on American TV. But amid all the fame, something else began to fade his childhood. To maintain the Urkel image, Jaleel had to live like the character even off-screen. No haircut changes, no gym workouts, always keeping the awkward walk and goofy grin. "I felt like I was living someone else's life," he said. "I wasn't allowed to grow up, only to stay trapped in Urkel's body." While his peers were playing basketball or hanging out on weekends, he spent 6 days a week on set, studying between takes and filming until late at night. The laughter heard on TV came from dozens of retakes under scorching lights with thick glasses that strained his eyes. Sometimes during breaks, Jaleel would just stare at the pair of glasses in his hands and whisper, "If there's no Urkel, they won't need me." That was the constant fear of a child star loved for a character, but unseen as a person. Yet despite the pressure, Jaleel's talent shone through. He didn't just play Urkel, he created an entire Urkel universe. Stefan Urquell, the suave and confident alter ego. Myrtle Urkel, the funny cousin. His versatility earned him 3 NAACP Image Awards and a Young Artist Award, making him one of the few black TV actors with global influence. But every glory has its price. As fame grew, freedom shrank. By 18, Jaleel was exhausted. He saw his face on t-shirts, posters, dolls, even cereal boxes. Hundreds of fan letters arrived daily, but the more he was loved, the more lost he felt. In one interview, he blurted out, "If anyone ever sees me play Urkel again, just shoot me and get it over with." The statement caused a media storm, though he later clarified that it was said in exhaustion. Still, it reflected the mindset of a young man trapped in the image he had created. When Family Matters ended in 1998, Jaleel White was only 22, but already carried the weight of a veteran star. He decided to step away from Hollywood and study film and television at UCLA, hoping to better understand the art behind the camera. But no matter how hard he tried, the shadow of Urkel clung to him. Directors said he was too famous for audiences to believe he could be anyone else. In Hollywood's eyes, Urkel was immortal, but Jaleel White was not. The fall of the good-natured Urkel image. Hollywood once adored Jaleel White for the gentle smile and goofy charm of Urkel, a symbol of kindness, harmlessness, and innocence. But in 2012, a single interview shattered everything. Headlines exploded Family Matters star. Accused of domestic violence. People couldn't believe that the clumsy nerd they once loved had become the center of a domestic abuse scandal. From that moment on, Jaleel White's image was never the same. The story had been brewing since 2010, when Jaleel and his girlfriend Bridget Hardy, an actress and model he met through industry friends, broke up on tense terms. They shared a young daughter named Semhaya, born in 2009, and their relationship had begun to fracture over disagreements about childcare work and trust. 2 years later, in April 2012, Hardy gave an exclusive interview to Star magazine, recounting in detail an argument that, according to her, went far beyond a normal dispute. Bridget Hardy claimed she discovered signs of Jaleel's infidelity after reading messages on his phone. When confronted, she said he lost control, smashed the phone, and attacked her. Hardy described being punched in the chest, then shoved so hard that she fell against a toilet, the impact breaking it apart. "I was so terrified, I grabbed my baby and ran out into the night without even taking any clothes," she said. "I just thought if I stayed, I might not survive." Her detailed, chilling account spread across every online news outlet, repeatedly cited by Radar Online People and E! News. According to Hardy, after she left for a few days to calm down, she returned home to find the locks changed. All her belongings had been moved to a rented storage unit. "He wanted me completely erased from his life," she said. "The man I thought was the kindest turned out to be someone who could throw the mother of his child out of their home." The public was stunned partly by moral shock. How could Urkel, the embodiment of goodness and awkward innocence, be accused of violence? But also because of what he represented, Family Matters was a sitcom that celebrated love, respect, and family values. Now its star stood accused of the very opposite. Jaleel White didn't stay silent. Shortly after Star published the story, he fired back in an interview with People, speaking calmly, but with exhaustion. "There was no investigation, no prosecution, no police ever knocking on my door. This is just a made-up story meant to tear me down at a time when I was doing well." Indeed, Hardy's allegations surfaced right as Jaleel was competing on season 14 of Dancing with the Stars. He claimed she deliberately chose the perfect timing to damage his reputation and pressure him in custody negotiations. "When you start doing well, someone always tries to pull you down," Jaleel said. "What hurts most is that it came from the mother of my child." According to records from People and E! Online, no formal police investigation was launched due to lack of physical evidence, and Hardy never filed a criminal complaint. The case quickly faded, but its aftershocks lasted for years. Social media was flooded with debate. One side believed Jaleel was the victim of post-breakup smear tactics, while the other claimed Hollywood was protecting another male star. The media exploited the contrast between Urkel and the real Jaleel. Nicki Swift ran a headline, "From sitcom angel to abuse suspect, the unbelievable transformation of Jaleel White." Each article tore his public image a little further. Small endorsement deals disappeared. Some TV shows quietly postponed inviting him back. Though never convicted, Jaleel White was sentenced in the court of public opinion. In a later interview, he said what frightened him most wasn't losing fame, it was losing his daughter's trust. "One day she'll learn how to Google her dad's name," he said. "I just hope she'll see that her father handled himself with dignity, even when thrown into the fire." His words sounded both bitter and helpless. No matter how he defended himself, the stain remained. In Hollywood journalism, there's a saying, "You don't need to be convicted. An accusation alone can end your career." For Jaleel, that saying came true. From a childhood icon, he suddenly became synonymous with scandal. Years later in a podcast, Jaleel admitted that the incident with Bridget Hardy hurt more deeply than anything else in his life. "You can forgive someone you once loved," he said, "but you never forget the feeling of the world turning its back on you." So over time, Bridget Hardy withdrew from the public eye, while Jaleel tried to rebuild his image through minor roles and personal projects. Yet the memory of 2012 remained a deep scar, reminding him that a single rumor could erase an entire legacy. From that point on, audiences no longer saw him through the innocence of the past. Urkel was dead, and Jaleel White, guilty or not, could never again be America's sweetest nerd. The Bridget Hardy scandal was the first dark turning point in his story, the beginning of a downward spiral, where fame, love, and trust shattered in an instant. The explosion of anger on the Family Matters set. When the scandal with Bridget Hardy broke, many who had worked with Jaleel White remarked his temper wasn't new. They recalled a long-buried memory from nearly 2 decades earlier, the near-legendary 1997 altercation between Jaleel and veteran actress Jo Marie Payton, who played matriarch Harriet Winslow on Family Matters. That story, once considered the show's biggest behind-the-scenes secret, resurfaced and dealt another heavy blow to the wholesome image of the good-natured Urkel. It was during the 9th and final season of Family Matters. By then, Jaleel White was 21, no longer the obedient kid, but a bona fide star. The name that single-handedly guaranteed the show's ratings. Viewers no longer tuned in for the Winslow family, they tuned in for Urkel. That reality made the atmosphere on set increasingly tense. The only person bold enough to confront him directly was Jo Marie Payton, affectionately known among the cast as Mama Payton for her strong will and strictness. In one episode titled Original Gangsta Dog, Jaleel had to transform into a street version of Urkel, his cousin OGD, a brash young black man with a tough look and attitude. The script required him to perform an act described by the writers as defiant and rebellious. When Payton read the script, she found the scene offensive and inappropriate for a family-oriented show and asked for it to be removed. But Jaleel, by then the soul of the show, strongly objected, "The audience will love this scene. This is how Urkel grows up." The disagreement quickly turned heated. Payton later recalled, "He started kicking, yelling. I said, 'Calm down, baby. It's just a scene.' He yelled back, 'She must want to melee,' meaning she must want to fight." Payton, a strong black woman both on and off screen, wasn't having it. I asked, "What's a melee baby?" He said, "It means fight." I told him, "Then come on." And I really would have given him a lesson he'd never forget if Darius McCrary, who played Eddie Winslow, hadn't grabbed me and held me back. Those revelations came from Jo Marie Payton's 2022 interviews with Entertainment Tonight and people shocking fans everywhere. For years, audiences believed the Family Matters cast was a real family, loving and harmonious, just like the show's message. But behind the camera, things sometimes felt more like a battlefield of egos. According to Payton, Jaleel was no longer that 12-year-old boy. He had become too powerful. The producers let him do whatever he wanted, she said. They were afraid of losing Urkel. The show survived because of him, so no one dared upset him. A child spoiled like that starts thinking he can disrespect anyone. Payton spoke with lingering anger, but also a hint of sadness. "I didn't hate that boy. I was angry at the adults who never set boundaries for him." The incident was never made public at the time. In 1997, before the rise of the internet, entertainment news was tightly controlled. But within the production team, everyone knew that day had gone too far. Although the scene was completed, the mood afterward turned icy. Payton stayed silent for the rest of the shoot, and just weeks later, she asked to leave the show, handing her role of Harriet to another actress. Many crew members believed her decision stemmed directly from the clash with Jaleel White. Jaleel himself has never directly addressed the event. When asked about Peyton's 2022 comments, he simply said, "I have great respect for her. I've always seen her as a second mother. As for what happened, I think it should stay buried in the past." That polite answer wasn't enough to quiet public speculation. On the contrary, it made people even more convinced that there truly was another Urkel one who was hot-headed, self-assured, and quick to anger lurking behind the camera. From then on, rumors began spreading through the television industry. Jaleel White was difficult to work with. Some former crew members hinted that he had become so pampered that no one dared edit his dialogue anymore. Others claimed his mother also. His manager constantly interfered in production decisions from wardrobe to script approval, frustrating many colleagues. For audiences, however, the story of the near brawl didn't fully break until Peyton spoke publicly in 2022, exactly 25 years later. The revelation set social media ablaze. Urkel tried to fight Mama Winslow. Thousands of posts flooded Twitter and Reddit, some shocked, some amused, but most tinged with sadness. To many, Family Matters wasn't just a sitcom, it was childhood itself. Ironically, this very incident deepened the portrait of Jaleel White as a complex figure, a gifted performer who achieved fame too early, burdened with emotional wounds and an uncontrollable ego. Jo Marie Peyton once said something that still resonates: "A child carrying an entire show on his shoulders can never grow up normal." And perhaps she was right. Early success left Jaleel isolated within the very empire he had built. The 1997 incident was merely the breaking point, a sign that beneath Urkel's goofy smile, another person was emerging, older, stubborn, and filled with pent-up rage. When the studio lights finally dimmed, Jaleel White was no longer the cherished boy America adored. All that remained were the echoes of laughter and a past anyone could use against him. The outburst on the Dancing with the Stars stage. In 2012, Jaleel White was given a rare chance to rewrite his life story. After nearly a decade out of the spotlight, he was invited to join season 14 of the hit reality show Dancing with the Stars, a stage that had helped many Hollywood celebrities reclaim their fame. For the audience, it was a long-awaited reunion with Urkel, now a grown man, calmer, more charismatic. But for Jaleel, it was more than nostalgia. It was redemption. He stepped onto the dance floor with a confident smile and a moving declaration: "Urkel was my childhood. Today, this is who I really am." At first, everything went smoothly. Jaleel was paired with Australian professional dancer Kim Johnson, a two-time DWTS champion. The duo had great chemistry and consistently earned high scores from the judges. Their routines were praised for blending technical precision with playful energy, a charming echo of the qualities audiences once loved in Jaleel. The media even nicknamed him the Reborn Urkel in a gentleman's suit. But behind the scenes, the smiles didn't always last. Training for DWTS was notoriously grueling. 5 to 6 hours a day, constant filming, and intense physical and emotional demands. A crew source told Us Weekly Jaleel was under immense pressure. He wanted to be perfect to prove he still mattered. But the harder he pushed, the more stressed he became. That pressure finally exploded during one fateful rehearsal. According to eyewitnesses, the incident occurred during practice for a samba routine. While moving across the floor, Jaleel accidentally stepped on Kim's foot. She exclaimed, "Ow," instinctively, a normal reaction. But instead of apologizing, Jaleel erupted in anger. He stepped forward, face flushed, and shouted, "Don't act like a child. I didn't hurt you that bad." Kim was stunned and tried to explain that it was just a reflex. But Jaleel didn't listen. He called her stupid, leaving the entire studio in silence. A production team member stepped in to intervene, but things were already out of control. According to CBS News, Kim burst into tears and left the rehearsal room while Jaleel continued yelling, blaming the producers for pairing him with the wrong partner and making him look like a fool on camera. Several witnesses said his anger erupted suddenly, as if built up over time. Fellow dancers Donald Driver and Mark Ballas rushed in to calm him down. Mark even put a hand on his shoulder, but Jaleel snapped back with a sarcastic jab. "You only play annoying neighbors in cheap sitcoms. Stay in your lane." The comment froze the room. News spread almost instantly. Entertainment outlets ran headlines like Jaleel White explodes in rage on Dancing with the Stars. People in E! News quoted insiders saying Kim Johnson was shocked and had to skip practice that day. For the media, the story served as living proof of the volatile temper Jaleel had long been rumored to possess since his Family Matters days. As the scandal grew, Jaleel appeared on ABC News to defend himself. "I didn't yell at anyone," he insisted. "It was just a misunderstanding. The cameras follow us all day. Emotions run high. Everyone gets tired." He said he deeply respected Kim, calling her a wonderful friend and teacher. Still, the damage was done. Audiences began seeing him differently. Ironically, on the very next episode, Jaleel and Kim performed a rumba, a sensual emotional dance about forgiveness and connection. Their performance ended with a standing ovation. Even Mark Ballas, the man he had insulted, stood and applauded. On live television, Jaleel smiled gracefully, but backstage he confessed to a reporter, "I'm exhausted. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." Though the scandal didn't get him eliminated from the competition, it solidified his reputation as hot-tempered and unpredictable, a label the media had attached to him for years. From the near fight with Jo Marie Payton to the domestic abuse allegations, and now this public outburst, Jaleel White seemed unable to escape the tag of a star too hard to handle. As one Variety columnist wrote, Urkel once made America laugh for being clumsy. But Jaleel makes America shake its head for being angry. After the season ended, Jaleel went silent for months. He refused all interviews and posted only a single message on Twitter. "When the world keeps reminding you of your mistakes, remind yourself why you started." The post received thousands of shares, but it wasn't enough to erase the scar that public scrutiny had left behind. The difficult star. After nearly a decade with Family Matters, Jaleel White had created one of television's rare cultural phenomena. But alongside the glow of success were fractures only insiders could see. As the series entered its final seasons, the familiar laughter on screen masked a heavy tension behind the scenes. Several cast members later admitted that Jaleel's early success had unintentionally turned him into a distant focal point on set. At first, everyone adored the polite, hard-working, and funny 12-year-old boy. But after just one season, everything changed. Urkel, originally written as a one-time guest character, suddenly became the soul of the show. Ratings skyrocketed, viewership doubled, and advertising revenue broke records. The more famous he became, the more power Jaleel gained. He was allowed to request dialogue changes and alter scenes as he pleased. One former crew member recalled, "We all knew that without Urkel, there was no show." And once he realized that the balance of power shifted. To older colleagues, Jaleel began to appear arrogant, even cold. Some complained that he acted like a pop star, not a child actor. But the truth was more complicated. His mother, Gail White, served as his manager and protector, almost to an extreme. She was on set every day, overseeing every detail from costumes to dialogue. If anyone spoke harshly to her son, she intervened immediately. On one occasion, she even demanded that filming stop mid-scene, because she felt it made Jaleel look too foolish. That kind of interference frustrated many people on set. One producer told Entertainment Weekly, "We understood maternal love, but the line between protection and control is thin." She made people hesitant to talk to Jaleel because talking to him meant talking to her. Gail's constant involvement gradually isolated him. Some colleagues avoided direct contact, filtering every request through management, turning what was once a friendly atmosphere into a stiff, rule-bound workplace. Success and loneliness grew side by side. In an interview, Jaleel once said, "People think I was arrogant, but I was just tired. I was the only kid surrounded by adults, and everyone had their own ego. My mom just wanted to keep me from being exploited." But Hollywood has no patience for long explanations. Once the label difficult to work with sticks, it follows you for life. When Family Matters ended in 1998, Jaleel struggled to find new leading roles. Studios feared he carried too much baggage, not just the shadow of Urkel, but also the story of a young star so sheltered by his mother that he couldn't function independently. During the 2000s, he shifted toward writing, producing, and voice acting. Yet the stigma of being hard to work with lingered. No one publicly criticized him, but in television circles, a quiet whisper persisted. "He's talented, but you'll need a lot of patience to work with him. Years later, after growing older and stepping out from his mother's shadow, Jaleel began to reflect. In his 2022 memoir, Growing Up Urkel, he admitted, "I understand why people were frustrated. I was overprotected to the point that I forgot I was part of a team. When others see you as the center of everything, they naturally keep their distance." He also revealed that he reached out to former castmates, including Jo Marie Payton and Kelly Shaneen Williams, who played Laura, to reconcile. "We've all grown up," he wrote. "Those misunderstandings were just the result of pressure." The Family Matters reunion at the 2023 90s Con proved that old wounds had begun to heal. On stage, Jaleel embraced Jo Marie Payton, the same woman who had once nearly taught him a lesson, as the audience erupted in applause. He said simply, "Without them, there wouldn't be me." The moment moved fans deeply. But within Hollywood, the perception of the difficult Urkel still hadn't fully disappeared. Hollywood has a long memory, especially for stars who shone brightly and then fell. For Jaleel White, fame has always been both a gift and a burden. He has had to fight not only the shadow of his own creation, but also an image others built around him, a child prodigy who couldn't adapt, raised in the glass cage of stardom. And though he has worked hard to change that narrative, the mark of a hard-to-please star remains like ink on a page. A reminder that in show business, the spotlight doesn't just illuminate, it also burns those who stand too close. The media storm, from a slip of the tongue. After years of trying to rebuild his image, Jaleel White seemed to have finally found peace with his past. In 2021, he released his memoir, Growing Up Urkel, a candid reflection on his journey from child star to a man confronting the shadows behind fame. The book received positive reviews, especially from fans of Family Matters, who wanted to understand the behind-the-scenes world of 1990s television. But just months later, a single comment during a book promotion event threw Jaleel back into the center of controversy. And this time, what was at stake was not just his reputation, but his place in the Black community he had always proudly identified with. During a panel in Delaware, when asked about Family Matters' legacy in African American culture, Jaleel expressed his frustration. "I feel like the Black community never truly appreciated Family Matters because it wasn't hood. It didn't have that street edge they consider real." He went on, "If you make a show with violent slang and a few fights, people call it authentic. But a middle-class Black family with working parents and positive values barely gets mentioned. That's sad." Jaleel's intent was to defend the value of Family Matters, one of the few Black sitcoms of its time that focused on love, family, and the success of the Black middle class. But his wording backfired. The word hood slang for poor gang-affiliated or street neighborhoods was interpreted by many as derogatory, especially when contrasted with other beloved Black shows, such as Martin Living Single or The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Within hours of his comments hitting Twitter, a storm erupted. One user wrote, "It's disappointing that Urkel himself used hood like an insult. Did he forget where he came from?" Another commented, "We love Family Matters, but he doesn't get to divide our community into good and bad. We're all part of the same story." The hashtag Urkel Out of Touch trended within 24 hours, and outlets like Hot New Hip Hop Complex and The Root all published sharp critiques. Not long after Jaleel appeared on the Higher Learning podcast to clarify, he sounded remorseful, admitting he had chosen the wrong word and never meant to offend anyone. "I mixed up a few thoughts," he said. "All I meant was that Family Matters was underrated because it didn't focus on street culture. I never meant to imply that hood shows were any less valuable. I was wrong to use that term. I apologize." Jaleel went further. "There's so much beauty in the hood. It's where our strength, resilience, and creativity come from. I shouldn't have generalized. That was my mistake." Though his apology was swift and heartfelt, public opinion remained divided. Some forgave him, calling it an emotional slip, while others argued it revealed how out of touch he had become after years away from his roots. Cultural scholars even weighed in. The Atlantic commentary called Jaleel's statement a textbook example of the 1990s Black artist paradox performers, who once symbolized integration but struggled to adapt in an age where every word is scrutinized through the lens of social media. Jaleel later admitted the controversy kept him up for many nights. In an interview, he confessed, "I just wanted to defend Family Matters, but I ended up sounding like I looked down on other black shows. That hurt. I learned that when you speak publicly, it's not just about meaning, well, it's about saying it right." Since then, he has stepped back from major media appearances, focusing on charity work and small workshops promoting mental wellness for young artists. Though the Hood incident was far from a career-ending scandal, it left a noticeable scar on his redemption arc. It wasn't about violence or misconduct. This time, it revealed something deeper: the struggle of a once-beloved star trying to find his voice in a new era. Perhaps Jaleel's true tragedy isn't that he misspoke, but that every attempt to defend his past seems to summon it back to test him again. Now nearing 50, Jaleel White is no longer the clumsy boy who made America laugh. He is a man who has lived through every shade of fame, glory scandal, misunderstanding, and the quiet that follows when the spotlight fades. After years of anger, isolation, and self-reflection, he has chosen to slow down to live with more calm grace and authenticity. Today, he hosts Rights and occasionally shares his story as a reminder that maturity isn't measured by fame, but by how one rises after every fall. He finds peace in small moments, mornings with his daughter, simple meals, and a smile that no longer feels forced before the camera. Perhaps the most beautiful part of Jaleel's journey doesn't belong to Steve Urkel, but to the man who finally stepped out of his shadow to live at last as himself. If this story sparked your curiosity or moved you in any way, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the jaw-dropping secrets and untold stories behind Hollywood's glittering lights that we're about to reveal.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast.
There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on the screen.